this to just tell people. So the deal is this: we're on Stop the Silence, official Stop the Silence.
Hey,
and
whoa,
we're on
whoa.
Too Real as well.
Dr. Umar Johnson in the house.
All our people a chance to get to hear this interview, and we're also on Facebook, so we are streaming live.
What's going on, Doc?
What's going on, ladies? Good to see you.
Good evening,
Dr.
Umar.
Good evening. Good evening. Glad to be with you.
It's so good to see you. You don't even know.
Likewise, likewise.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We are in the process of trying to rehab our small school building. We have 2 of them in Delaware, about 30 minutes from the Philadelphia airport. Wow. And we just started renovations today, actually. So I'm hoping by the new year, one of the schools will be ready to go. That's the plan. And I just released my new book, Black Parent Advocate, The Art of War for Dealing with Public and Charter Schools. So I'm about to start a book tour. Got a couple of 10-year anniversary events. It's my 10 years for Chicago. We did a book release last Friday. I have my 10 years for Atlanta, November the 19th. I have my 10 years for Fort Lauderdale, Florida, December the 10th. And we'll have to do something special in the UK for my 10 years. When y'all first brought me over, I think that's in 12. I think that's 2022, right? I think I first came in 2012, was it?
And who are you going to get to do that?
Shady Power Six.
No, it's Power Six all day, every day. You know that. You know what? I'm so proud of you. You don't even know. I'm so proud of you with the school and you know all this garbage what people was talking about. I knew Jeanette and then would tell you. I always said one thing with Umar, he will deliver, and Umar's not a thief or anything like that. Fact. And I'm just so proud of you.
It's freezing. Glad to hear. Glad to
don't
hear
worry,
that.
we're sorting it out now.
It's okay.
Okay, Umar, you know today's the start of Black History Month in the UK. So what message will you deliver with the people to the people? Because over here it's peak. But this is the head of the beast, as you know.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, today there's going to be a full moon in Aries today. So that's kind of interesting that your Black History Month begins today, because over here the full moon begins at 5:05. You guys are -5 or +5? You guys are +5. So you probably, well, it'll be probably the same time or something like that. But Aries is fire. You know, it's a fiery planet. It's a revolutionary type of an energy. So I think it's actually good that your Black History Month begins today. And of course, tomorrow is Nat Turner's birthday. Nat Turner, he turns 189 years old tomorrow. Wow. But, you know, for the US and the UK, as well as Canada, I think those 3 African communities are almost identical. And I think we suffer from 3 main problems in the UK, the US, and in Canada. Number one, as much as we dislike racism, I think that we have a special dependency on white people. It is psychological. We don't always see it. We don't always recognize it. We don't always feel it. But in my opinion, you know, from a psychological perspective, the UK should have done more by now for itself. The US should have done more for itself by now. And Black Canada should have done more for itself by now. And I think the reason we have not is because we are comfortable. Although we don't like the police genocides, the brutality, we don't like the systematic racism, but we are very comfortable under white control. We're very comfortable under white power. Even when we talk about solutions, normally the first thing out of our mouth is reparations. And I support reparations. Marcus Garvey is the father of modern reparations, but although he supported reparations, he didn't sit around waiting for it to come. Exactly. We still had to do what we have to do. Exactly. And when I look at the money we spend in the US, in the UK, in Canada, it doesn't make sense for us to be waiting on the state to fix the schools, or for the state to give us the jobs, or for the state to improve our medical care when we have the ability to build our own schools, our own hospitals, our own farms, our own supermarkets? When are we going to do for ourselves? You know, and this is the 100-year anniversary of the red, black, and green flag. 1920 was when Marcus Garvey and the others chose red, black, and green as the colors for the flag. August 13th, 1920, New York. So it's been 100 years. And sadly enough, 100 years later, with all the money we got, we waiting on white folks to change it.
Exactly. Crazy.
Yeah. So that's one. Number two, I think we have an over-dependency on God. I think black people have been using God as a scapegoat for far too long. Whenever we have a problem, we say, well, leave it up to the Lord. The Lord is in control. It's not up to us. And those are real convenient excuses for us to sit around and do nothing. We love to blame it on God. Well, why black people in the condition they're in? Because God said it that way. Well, if you believe that, then God is necessarily a white supremacist. Because if you're saying you're on the bottom because of God, then you're also saying white people are on the top because of God.
Exactly.
So you're saying God is a white supremacist. You understand? And I don't agree with that. We are lazy, and I'm just tired of us using God every time something doesn't go right. Well, leave it up to the Lord. But what about all that money you wasted? What about the way you live your life? What about the lack of unity in the organization? What about the fact that black churches don't do anything politically for the community? So I think we have to stop depending on God. We need to admit that we're very comfortable with white people leading us around. And I think the third situation, which is related to the first two, we are not serious yet, because all serious people use their money, their economic power, to bring about political transformation. Everybody does that but us. The reason voting is so important to black people has nothing to do with democracy. Voting is so important to black people because we have no other strategies in place.
Exactly.
We have no other strategies in place. Voting is important to white people, but they have other strategies in place.
Exactly.
Voting is important to the Chinese, the Asians, but they have other strategies in place. Black people have no other strategies in place. We pray, we protest, and we vote. Those are the only three things we're going to do. Don't ask us to use our money. Do never ask black people to use their money for political liberation, because we're not going to do it. And we would rather vote in order to assuage our guilt than dig in our pockets and use our money for liberation. Even when I look at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, and you look at what black boys are going through in the US, UK, Canada, because it's all the same, the special ed, the ADHD, the medicine, and you know I've been preaching on this forever. You would think that we would have already had the money for the school by now. After 6 years of fundraising, you would, and we don't. And black people ask me, am I surprised? I say, I'm not surprised, because if you look, we don't have any institutions. We don't have banks. The ones we do, they're few. Hospitals, supermarket, manufacturing, distribution. We do not believe in institutionalization. Black people do not believe in independence. We do not believe in institutionalization. We believe in depending on white people. Because even when you vote right now in America, it's the Biden-Trump, and they just had a ridiculous debate the other day where they both acted like two children. I said, if two black politicians would have conducted themselves like that during the debate, they would have been criticized and humiliated. Nobody would have got away with that type of behavior except two old white privileged rich men. You understand? But even in looking at that, it's the same white Jesus savior complex. Now, we've been voting in America since the 15th Amendment, 1868, I believe, 150 years. And 150 years later, in 2020, we are still voting for white people who we think are going to change something for black people. So the narrative hasn't changed. It still hasn't changed. Because neither one of these white men have ever done anything progressive for black people.
Well, exactly.
But every Negro is in the streets saying, you must vote. And then and don't get me wrong, I'm not against voting, but I'm against voting when it doesn't have an agenda and a program. Just as helter skelter, go out and vote, That doesn't benefit Black people. You have to vote as a block. You have to vote as a community. You have to vote as a unit. If every Black person in the UK is just going to vote their conscience, then nobody's voting for Black community. You can't vote your conscience. You have to vote community. What is in the best interest of your community? If you're just voting your conscience, then that's just another disorganized vote. It must be Black. And even in America, we're dedicated to the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party has done nothing for Black people. But we're still loyal, and we don't understand that if you're going to vote for the Democrats before you even know what they stand for, before we even know what they selling, we buying it. Think about that for a minute now. So before you go into the supermarket, you gonna buy. You already said, I'm gonna spend $100 in the supermarket. You don't know what they selling, but you gonna buy it. And that's Black people with the Democratic Party. We're buying it no matter what they selling. And that's not good, because America knows Black people are voting for the Democrats. And since the Democrats know that, they don't even have to try to cater to your vote. They don't even have to try to appeal to your interests, because they know that you're going to be the guaranteed slave at the voting booth. And the Republicans don't have to pay you no mind, because they know you're not going to vote for them. I always say the Black vote is the cheapest vote to get, because it doesn't come with any conditions. Everybody else's vote comes with conditions. I'm pretty sure it's the same in the UK. Whatever party carries for Black people going to do it. It carries no conditions. But here's the point. The Black bourgeoisie doesn't want you to organize the Black vote. Because if you organize the Black vote in the UK, you automatically make them accountable to the Black community. They don't want it. That's why they say, just go out and vote. Just go out and vote. Because if everybody just votes their conscience instead of voting community, they can never be held responsible. But the minute you say 100,000 of us are going to vote this way, and this is what we want for our votes, now they're being told before you vote what it is you want in exchange for this lump sum of votes. They do not want that. The Black politicians are scared. They're scared of Black people organizing the vote, because in doing that, you're going to force them to be more responsible, more accountable, which means they're going to have to start going to war with the white people who they normally align themselves with. They do not want to do that. Black politicians don't want to turn to the white person next to them in that party and say, you're going to have to start doing more for Black people or I'm going to lose my job. They don't want to do that. So they rather you just go out and vote your conscience, because that'll never make the Black bourgeoisie responsible.
Totally agree. I was just reading some of the comments, and one person said, DrUmarJohnson, your co-host is less than a week.
Yeah?
What she say? What she say?
In other words, I might be like wearing a wig, like your co-host is wearing a wig.
Oh.
I can't with these people. Heard it all my life. Anyway, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, no, what I was going to mention is that in the UK, in terms of politicians and MPs and that, you can't find many Black MPs, and I think that's the problem, because we don't have any Black MPs that we can look up to, that we can vote for. Do you see what I'm saying? So the other communities, they have their people representing them, but we don't have anyone of substantial, whatever, that we can represent.
But we have Black MPs, but the problem is the Black MPs do not represent the people. They're your bougie, conservative, wannabe white MPs. The problem is what the other cultures do in the UK, they put their people in that position. They don't have a choice. They put the person that for their people in there.
And y'all should do the same thing. I think you guys, and we should too, find out who you want to represent you, but you got to finance them. See, that's the problem. That's the part we don't want. See, voting is not the most important thing you do in an election. The most important thing you do in an election is finance the candidates up front. See, when you go to vote, you're only being able to vote because somebody financed them. Somebody gave them the money to pay for the campaign office, the trucks, the ads, the radio, the TV, the newsletter. Somebody paid for them to get in a position where they could get on the ballot. Money gets you on the ballot. So you got to get them on the ballot. But with us, we'll get behind somebody, but we don't want to put the money behind them. It's the money that matters. Even when you look at, take a Barack Obama. Black people gave a lot of money to the Obama campaign, but they didn't give it as a black community. They gave it as individual schizophrenic Negroes. Just like they say, get out and vote, just donate. But again, the donations had no conditions. They had, so even though we was out front with Obama, but we had no conditions on the money. So it didn't work. You gotta get in. Whenever, you have to know what the timeline is. When is the last date to declare that you're going to be a candidate? So you know what the deadline is, find out who you're going to represent, sit down with them, get a budget together. What is it going to take you to beat that MP? He's been there 15 years. What is it going to take you to get him out of office? You say, well, he's well financed. He got the banks, he got the businesses. For me to beat him, my campaign is going to have to spend at least £1 million to beat him. And then the black community has to come up with the £1 million. See, it's true. Most black politicians have been no good if you look throughout the history, but it's not all their fault. A lot of it is the people, because you're asking me to carry out a black agenda when I had to get financed by the white people you want me to take on. I can't, listen, if you're a black Democrat, you're financed by the Democratic Party. Most blacks who run, they run because they want the money from the party to help put them in a position to get elected. It's the money. So as long as they got to get the money from the white political party, they own them. They own them. We come to them after they win and say, now that you're the mayor, now that you're the MP, now that you're the governor, you have to sit down with us and tell us what you're going to do for black folks. They're not going to do anything. You're too late. That conversation doesn't come after they win. That conversation comes when they have an intention to run and you come to the table. We're going to put up $1 million for your campaign, but this is what we want. It doesn't matter who votes and who don't vote, because if I financed you, you're going to be obligated to me because I'm giving you money and I got votes. For example, in America, and this is probably the same in the UK, police and teachers. No politician ever talks about changing education. Well, they talk about it, but they never do it. And they never talk about holding the police accountable, because the teachers and the police give the largest donations to the campaigns and they have the most votes. So everybody in America knows you don't piss off the teachers and the police, because we need their money to get on the ballot and we need their vote to get into the office. We need their money to get on the ballot and we need their vote to get into office. People should be saying the same thing about black people in the UK. They should be scared as hell of black people. They should be saying, listen, we're going to have to give them something because we need their money to get into office, and we need their money to get on the ballot, and we need their votes to get into office. If they're not saying that about black people, then we're not organized. And Marcus Garvey said what? The Honorable Marcus Garvey said the greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization. And the reason we're so disorganized is because we hate each other more than we hate racism. I don't care if it's the UK, I don't care if it's Canada, I don't care if it's the US, even in Africa and the Caribbean. We hate each other more than racism. Black people will not stop fighting long enough to focus on the collective enemy. Everybody else does. The Arabs are not a utopia. Okay, Pakistanis got their issues with the Arabs. They got their issues, you know, Pakistan, the Iranians, the Iraqis, they got petty.
With the Irish.
Yes, 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 yes. The Irish, the Germans, the French, Israel. They don't get along. The Asians too. The Chinese don't like the Koreans. They think they're better than the Cambodians. But guess what? When it comes time to the collective progress of the race, they put that to the side. What is best for that petty stuff? You see it in the Italian mafia. The five families have issues, but they have a process to settle them problems before it undermines the entire system. Black people don't have that. Our petty differences have no limit. they continue and they will destroy the whole movement off of a single person's jealousy, envy, or dislike.
Exactly.
Which is why people ask me, and I'll be quiet, Kenny. People say, well, why did you start with the school? Like, it's so much you can be doing. Why the school? You need to build a military. I said, you silly Negro. If I built a military and armed them, sooner or later, they're going to be fighting with each other.
Yeah.
Because Black people love to lead, but they don't like to follow.
Exactly.
We love to lead, but we do not like to follow. I always tell you, I always say this, and I have a podcast that I do. And I have one podcast on leadership lessons for young revolutionaries. And one of the leadership lessons that I have is I say, you have to identify the people who will become your enemy your first year of your organization or your movement. Because with Black people, we come into an organization already looking for how we can take the leader down if they don't do what we want them to do. If they don't do what we want them to do, we automatically looking to take them down. It's how we operate. So you have to know who those people are so you can neutralize them, you know, when the time comes.
You can travel with us though, innit? You know we got.
Oh yeah, Power Sis. Well, y'all not being shady, I travel with Power Sis.
What you say? Whatever. What I was going to say to you is, I do agree with you about around starting with the school first, because I would definitely do that, because it goes back to that Frederick Douglass saying that it's easier to repair, to build.
It's easy to raise,
than to repair broken men. So I think we have to get them when they're young. We have to, you know? And everything else comes after that. So I stand strong with you on that. I stand strong with you on everything anyway, but I definitely do on that stance. Let me ask you something. What do you think of the NFAC? Because they're like a big powerhouse. I didn't know much of them, but they're like a big powerhouse in the UK, and a lot of people are going towards that direction. But it's very different for the UK because we cannot bear arms, but they've got a similar group and they're gotten into martial arts training. So what's your opinion about that stance, the NFAC stance? Good question.
I don't know enough about them.
That's fine too.
Yeah, I don't know enough about them to offer a responsible critique, but I'll say this. I appreciate the fact I can appreciate the psychological value of Black people seeing armed Black people in large numbers, organized, and at least appearing ready to defend their life. Right? That because we're not used to that. You understand? So I can appreciate that. I can appreciate them standing up and taking a stand, you know, against the death of Breonna Taylor and others. I appreciate all that. My only concern, it's not a criticism, it's just a concern. When you do this kind of work and you're dealing in military, I would just hope, and the brother seems to be fairly intelligent, the brother who's leading, but I would hope that you're careful in screening who you bring in, because they seem to be growing pretty quickly, which is the perfect breeding ground for government infiltration. Perfect breeding ground. You see, when you say I want 1 million Black guns, that's powerful. I support that. But how are you going to make sure you ain't bringing in 1 million Black agents? Because it only take one person to fire off that weapon, and we got a civil war, right? So I support them. I haven't seen any reason not to. I have a policy. If I don't see you hurting Black people, I'm not going to oppose you. If I don't see you hurting Black people, I'm not going to oppose you. Now, privately, I might have some reservations about things, but publicly, I will never go against a Black movement, a Black organizer who isn't doing something that puts our people in harm's way. It's like if Kevin is out there organizing Black people to vote, and DR.UMAR don't think that the people running for office either way care about Black people. I'm not going to publicly oppose you, because no matter who our people vote for, it's not going to hurt us, because the vote don't really matter at the end of the day. white racism is going to win. So it's no need to oppose somebody, you know, if they're not hurting the community. So my thing to the brother, keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? Be careful about what you're doing because you're dealing with people's lives, you know, but I don't see a problem with the NFAC at this point. Can you hear me, Kemet? I can't hear you. I can't hear y'all. I can't hear you. Test, test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Test, test, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Y'all can hear me. Can y'all hear Kemet? The people who are on the live, can y'all hear the ladies? Can y'all hear the sisters? Yes or no? Thumbs down if you can't hear them. Thumbs up if you can. Thumbs down if you cannot hear the sisters. Okay, y'all can't hear them either. Okay. What you think, Kemet? Come out and go back in? Maybe I should come out and go back in. I'm going to come out and go back in. Official stop the silence. I'm going to go out and come back in. Let me see.